sitting down in a tafsir class, I mean, I think it's the best classes if you really want to understand the Quran and really want to understand your religion, because with one verse you learn about fiqh, you learn about history, you learn about the linguistic analysis of it, you learn, you know, how it can be applied, what it really means, different interpretations, and so on and so forth. You know, the spiritual aspect of it, the literal aspect of it, and so on. You know, a good tafsir teacher would actually, with one verse of the Quran, or with any one of my teachers, he said of, you know, one of the, and I think he's graced this gathering before, Sheikh Abu Bakr. He used to say, he was, so my teacher was Sheikh Abu Bakr's student, and he used to say that he would teach you any verse of the Quran without using the book, and he would spend at least 2 hours on any verse of the Quran that you give him. And when he learned the Quran he learned half of the Quran in tafsir from him. So that's someone, but frankly speaking, I don't think he has the time now. But this particular, his student, who, you know, hopefully I'll tell you about him. He holds some classes on Thursdays. I'll tell you the details. But I don't know whether right now they're currently doing tafsir or other sciences. But he's the one I had the opportunity of learning from, you know, personally. But if you do find, you know, if there are classes here, or Sheikh Haytham is also an amazing Sheikh as well, MisbahInstitute. You know, I had the blessing of sitting down with him and learning, you know, Surah Al-Waqi'ah, you know, once of that. You know, those are people who, jewels, I think they are. You know, they still exist, you know, even in our times, you know, but if you have the opportunity to sit down with them, it's a journey that I believe me, when you come out of any such a class, you actually feel like, say, wow, I've just been, you know, immensely, you know, flourished, you know, because what you learn, you tend to understand the verse in the Quran which says, لَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا. If this Quran was revealed on a mountain, you know, you'd see it crumble. And you would understand this because when you go into one verse, and like when we learned the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha, we spent about 7 3-hour lessons on it. And he said he was asked to shorten it, and each verse took 3 hours. You know, A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim, 3 hours. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, 3 hours. Right? And that's what I said, if you were to, so, you know, these classes, I believe if you have the opportunity to sit down in front of, those are 2 people that I personally have sat down in front of that I can recommend, but there are many around, and the fact that I've not mentioned them doesn't mean they're not worthy of learning from.
The Outreach classes actually take place in this building.
Okay.
If you go to the website, you see they offer them on weekday nights, and a lot of tafsir classes as well.
Any last questions? That's right.
Yes.
Thank you. Poetry?
Yes.
You're fond of?
Don't start. No. Yeah.
We've all in certain traditions about being careful of poetry because it can take you in that childlike state which can make you forget a lot.
There's a verse in the Quran which says, وَالشُّعَرَاءُ يَتَّبِعُهُمُ الْغَاوُونَ أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّهُمْ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ يَهِيمُونَ وَأَنَّهُمْ يَقُولُونَ مَا لَا يَفْعَلُونَ. Now that verse, those 3 verses say, and as for the poets, only deluded people follow them, right? Do you not see that? They're very treacherous in what they say. They say one thing, and really they're saying, you know, they're meaning something else, or they say one just to delude people, right? And they say what they don't do. Now Ibn Abbas said if Allah had stopped there, then poetry would be haram, right? It would be impermissible for us to learn poetry. But there's a verse after which says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا وَانْتَصَرُوا مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا ظُلِمُوا وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. And the verse says, that part continues, then gives an exception to that. It says, except those who believe and do righteous deeds, and they remember Allah a lot, and they remember God a lot, right? So there is an exception to poetry. Now, you mentioned all the 4 schools of thought, right? Abu Hanifa, they were all poets. If you read their poetry, you think, wow. And they didn't just make their poetry strictly about Islam alone. It wasn't strictly religious poetry. You know, Imam Shafi'i said, وَمِنَ الْبَلِيلَةِ أَن تُحِبَّ وَمَنْ تُحِبُّ يُحِبُّ غَيْرَكَ. You know, he said it's one of the calamities that you love someone and the person you love doesn't love you, right? This is just, you know, it's normal poetry. right? And then, you know, many, you know, but the point here is poetry has that effect. You're right, it takes you into a different state of being. But it doesn't mean, you know, that's better, much better entertainment than, dare I say, the X Factor, for example, right? Okay, that's better entertainment because you actually you listen to something which makes you think, you know? كلماتنا في الحب تقتل حبنا إن الحروف تموت حين تقال. Like one poet said, when we speak about love, it kills our love. Why does he say that? How can words kill your love? It tells you in the next part. إن الحروف تموت حين تقال. The nature of words is that once they're uttered, where is it? It's gone. Right? He said, look, our emotions should be here. Shouldn't speak about it, about love. This is what. So poetry, there's a lot of wisdom in poetry, you know. And of course there is, you know, there's a lot of wisdom that should be learned in poetry. You cannot learn the Arabic language to a level of, you know, what's that word? To a really respectable level if you don't study Jahili poetry. You know, if you don't study pre-Islamic poetry, and to understand how this is how they do things, you know, and you know, all the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had one of his companions, Hassan bin Thabit. You know, he used to ask Hassan bin Thabit to stand on his minbar, on his what's minbar again? On his pulpit. Thank you. Right? He used to ask him to stand on his pulpit and recite poetry. You know, he said, recite Hassan bin Thabit. And one of his poems about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, أجمل منك لم تر قط عيني وأكمل منك لم تلد النساء خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب كأنك خلقت كما تشاء. You know, he said, more beautiful than you, right? More complete than you. Anything more complete than you, my eye has never seen. Anything more complete than you. And more beautiful than you, no woman has ever given birth to. He said, you were created perfectly, free from all faults, you know, free from all, you know, faults, right? Free from any faults or any deficiencies. As though you were there dictating what you wanted. You know, that I want that air, that eye, as if you were there. As if you were the one that willed for you to be created that way. You know, that's poetry. Now he uses an extreme to show how perfect. You know about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu when it comes to poetry about him. One of the poets about him said, he said, you know, دَعْمَنْ دَعَتْهُ النَّصَارَ فِي نَبِيِّهِمِ وَاحْكُمْ بِمَا شِئْتَ مَدْحًا وَاحْتَكِمِ. He said, leave what the Christians say about their prophet. That is, don't call him a god, right? Don't call him a god. وَاحْكُمْ بِمَا شِئْتَ فِيهِ مَدْحًا وَاحْتَكِمِ. But after that, say what you want. Why? فَإِنَّ فَضْلَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ لَيْسَ لَهُ حَدٌّ فَيُعْرِبَ عَنْهُ نَاطِقٌ بِفَمِهِ. Because the reality of this prophet is one which no person with a tongue can actually reach its extreme, its extent with his tongue. No one with a tongue can describe his bounties. Right? It's impossible. You know, كَالشَّمْسِ تَظْهَرُ لِلْعَيْنِ مِنْ بُعْدٍ صَغِيرَةً وَتُكِلُّ الْطَرْفَ مِنْ أَمَامِ. It's like the sun, but when you look at it from afar, you think it's quite small. But if it were to come closer to you, it would engulf you totally. You know? And okay, I better stop here. But you know, that is the. Now, look at how did that make you feel regarding the Prophet Muhammad? This is it. That's what poetry does to you. You know, one of the ones they said about the Quran, لا تعجبا لحسود راح ينكرها تجاهلا وهو عين الحادق الفحم قد تنكر العين ضوء الشمس من رمد وينكر الفم طعم الماء من سقم. You know, he said, don't be surprised by the one who talks badly about the Quran. You know, don't let it annoy you or surprise you. Tajahulan, he's doing it out of ignorance. Because this is the essence of the gardens of knowledge. Right? Why? He said the eye might not like the beautiful rays of the sun because the eye is diseased. A diseased eye, you know, might not be able to look at the sun. Also, the tongue might not like the taste of water out of illness. Right? So it's not that the water is bad, but the person might have something within them. You know? And there are many, many aspects of this as well. So poetry actually gives you, as I said, it takes you to a level with everything that makes you, you know, you feel it. You feel what you're going through. You know, and okay, I better stop here. But you know, I guarantee you, if you were to, anyone who says that hasn't tasted poetry. You know, poetry is not something you can tell someone this is what it is. It's your own, right? It has to do with emotions. You know, but when you go through it yourself, when you experience it, it transforms you, and then you become, you know, someone who is just, yeah. But,
We could listen, but I'm conscious that it is getting late, and we want to give some time to meet and greet. Maybe have some private questions, and please promise to tell some people about where to learn. Just a couple of quick announcements before we go for food and milling around. Like I mentioned earlier, we are going to start having Arabic lessons for the basic level. So please, if you are interested, take registrations. The woman is standing at the back. This is for, you know, very basic, from like your ABCs in Arabic to also some basic rules regarding tajweed, which we will be starting within the next couple of months. So please, 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 if you are interested, we can't do this unless people do come forward to us. If you know other people who are interested or